McShin Foundation is Virginia's leading peer-to-peer recovery organization. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, let us get you connected. We can help you build a solid foundation through recovery. Here at the McShin Foundation, we are committed to healing families and saving lives.
It's on now, right? Okay. I'm sure they'd be able to hear me without it. Got them? So good evening, everyone. My name is Chris. Hi. And I am a person in long-term recovery. And for me, that means I have been free of all mind and mood-altering chemicals since June 17th of 2012. Yeah. And for those of you who can relate in this room, I'm also a grateful recovering addict called Chris. All right, there's a few of you. Yes. So we have to be careful about language these days, and there are terms that are stigmatizing. The second way is considered stigmatizing, but I'm here to tell you, for those of us who've embraced that title, it's empowering. See, the first way I referred to myself talks about the power that was restored to my life through this program of recovery. But that second way, that refers to the integrity that was needed in my life to restore the power. So I'll always be just as proud of that as being a person in long-term recovery, because one is not possible without the other. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. It'll come back. So 12 years ago today, I was also in this facility, but in a very different role. I was fighting for my life. My disease of addiction, just being in a culture of addiction, led me to a point where I had put myself in a compromising position. Oddly enough, when I look at it, I wasn't necessarily directly involved, but the point is, when you're in a culture of addiction, it's always possible to be in a compromising situation. And I found myself caught in the middle of a fight. I got stabbed. I was stabbed in my chest. The knife pierced the pericardium, the sac surrounding my heart. And I was left there for dead in a bar. And by the grace of God, I'm still here today. It's because of this hospital and the amazing surgeons and nurses and doctors and everyone else that cared for me throughout that ordeal. But it was a long ordeal. I was fighting for my life. I spent the better part of a month in the trauma ICU here. I had to have emergency open heart surgery to repair the trauma that occurred from the knife wound. And by the grace of God, as they were getting me to this hospital, and I was a code red, I was bleeding out, and it just so happened that there was a cardiothoracic surgeon that was finishing up, and a trauma surgeon that was finishing up their procedures. The stars all aligned, and then they were both able to take care of me as I was being brought in here. But that was only the beginning of it. That surgery started the process. It was a battle. I sat there. I laid here for the better part of 3 months continuously. There was a couple times I had gone out of the hospital. I was what they thought was well enough to discharge, but then brought back in. And the better part of 6 months in and out of the hospital. I had a thoracotomy, so they had to operate on each lung at different times because of complications. Not necessarily any damage that was done by the knife. The damage, they fixed it with that emergency procedure initially when I came in, but the complications were tremendous. And they just kept saying to me, "Why are you so sick?" I was a relatively healthy, other than 32 staples in my chest tubes coming out of me, all these things going on. I was a relatively healthy guy. I was early 30s. I don't know, do the math, 12 years ago? I'm 35, no. I was in my early 30s. We'll leave it at that. So I was relatively healthy for everything else other than this ordeal, and they couldn't understand why my body wouldn't bounce back. And all I kept hearing is, "Why are you so sick?" My fever kept spiking up to 104. They'd have to do all kinds of things to bring it down. I couldn't breathe. They had one of those big masks on my face at times. Not just the nasal tubes. This huge Star Wars-like mask, because I couldn't breathe. They had to induce me prior to a procedure. One of the thoracotomies on my lung, and got so bad, and I couldn't breathe, and I was struggling, and I kept getting fevers. They couldn't operate right away. They had to wait a few days because of, I guess it was because of the infection or the fever, or I can't recall, but they couldn't, so they had to induce me, I guess, into a coma. I was sedated. I don't know if you call that an induced coma. I don't know. But I was under for 3 days before they actually could do the surgery because it had gotten so bad. But just every step along the way, they just were perplexed. No one thought to ask the questions about what was happening in my life leading up to the stabbing. Obviously, I was poor choices. I had gotten stabbed, right? The whole basis of me being there. But there were a lot of poor choices. But no one, it just wasn't in the playbook to ask the questions, what was going on in your life? What were you doing? To understand, the amount of alcohol and other substances that I was consuming that pretty much eviscerated my immune system and didn't allow me to bounce back the way I had to bounce back. I couldn't get up and walk more than, as I went through the process, more than a few feet down the hall. And they just kept telling me, you're doing yourself in. If you do not push yourself, and I understand where that's coming from, you need to push yourself. You have to. If you do not push yourself to walk, your lungs are never going to recover in the way you need them to work so that you can go on and have a happy, healthy life and do everything you love doing. But I just couldn't find it in myself, beyond the fact that I was as sick as hell and I was just wallowing in it. But knowing the life I had left, and if I just let nature take its course at times, I thought to myself, I didn't have to go back to that life, even though I didn't realize what it meant at that time. I didn't wrap my head around the fact that I'm an addict. Or was it, at that moment, wonderful, grateful, recovering addict now. I could not realize then that I was an addict. Had no idea what that term meant. It never crossed my mind. No one had the conversations with me. And here I am, a captive audience, and the time to be talked. And, you have some things that I had some things that had just happened in my life. So if some professionals were at that point helping me connect some dots, maybe I would have understood what it was like to be an addict, or that I was an addict, understood the life choices that were occurring that put me there, were compromising me and not allowing me, even after, without using, still having the effect on me that I could not walk 3, 4, 5 feet down the hall. Because after those 6 months that I had spent for the better part in the hospital, put everything behind me at some point. Not even 3 months after that, I had a DUI. So I've been in recovery 7 years. This whole ordeal spanned from 12 years ago when it started, and then up until a year later, which would be 11 years. So there were still 4 years, for the better part of 4 years. I stayed out after spending nearly 6 months of my life in this facility, fighting for my life, having 3 surgeries within a 1-month span that people wouldn't have in 3 lifetimes, and still couldn't connect the dots. It was... So Jason Catalano did a great job talking about the human element, and others after him. Dr. Letcher just, also was very good at touching on that. Everything that we have going right now for us, all the gold standards of treatment, the miracles of medication-assisted treatment, you name it, the cutting-edge behavioral therapy, none of it means a thing without the human element. And the power, the peer-to-peer contact that Jason referred to, the certified recovery specialist, and the power that one individual helping another, the one that can relate to another, knowing those experiences and letting someone, knowing the right things to say because they've been there without telling them they've been there, but evoking the right thoughts by saying the right things. Because if I had a certified recovery specialist at my side in the hospital when I spent that time, any part of that 6 months, asking me some questions to help me get to the aha moment about my life and the life choices that led me to that whole ordeal. You know, and I didn't even really, I was out of the hospital Thanksgiving Day. God love, they knew I wanted to get, everyone knew I wanted to get out for the holiday, and they got me to some point of where I was doing pretty well health-wise on Thanksgiving Day. And I remember, and I don't remember her name, but this physician assistant came in to help discharge me. They got me out of the hospital that day. I was out exactly for less than 24 hours because I was out that day, and it had nothing to do with me being out that day, but sure enough, I had a complication to my lung. Actually, a staph infection engulfed my lung, so I had to go back in the hospital the next day, the day after Thanksgiving, and that's when I had that next procedure. But it was the cardiothoracic surgeon who did those procedures, Dr. Michael Zwerich. I don't think he's in this health network anymore. I think he moved on. But I remember him coming in and still had his coat on and came in very early that morning and sat down next to me, on the chair next to me, and looked at me and said, "I'm going to help you get this, you know. You need this. You deserve better than this. I've seen you fight. I've seen times when you weren't so willing to fight, but I know you've showed that you want to fight. You want something, and we're going to get this. I'm going to make sure you get this." And that didn't do anything for my addiction, obviously, but it gave me what I needed at that moment. That was the human element that got me what I needed to, after that surgery, to push myself. Push, push, push. And that's where I found, you know, the strength. Just from that quick, casual interaction, I found the strength to move on and actually push myself to start walking around halls and you name it, what I needed to do, that breathing apparatus, whatever that is, I could actually get the ball halfway. I couldn't get it I was able to get it more than halfway up. And, you know, it was a change. And fast forward, I finally got it several years later. But it is a joy, just like honesty. I don't know. Oh, there's honesty. She mentioned her. It's amazing. She's the CEO of the organization. You got clean there, right? I guess what you would call the CEO in training at the organization where I got clean. And it's only in this world in recovery that could do something like that for you. Make no mistake about it. You know, this is one of those gifts of recovery. We both had a John in our life. She had John Schindelser, I have John Dylan Snyder, who were both willing and ready and saw something in us to put us in a position where we can affect other people's lives and do what we love to do and be there for others. And, you know, Treatment Trends is near and dear to my heart. Is there anyone here from Treatment Trends tonight? Do we got anyone? All right. Thank you. So it's amazing because we have programs that are out there that are strictly based on human connection. We have people that are out there like myself, like you. All they do is human connection. This certified recovery specialist thing is a real thing. We have a lot of other things. Our care managers, our clinicians, they're all doing the human element thing really well. But we want to highlight something special tonight. And one of these individuals that is really special at what he does, and who I have nothing but love for, who's been there for me in many ways, and has been there for a lot of you in many ways. We'll share a little bit about his journey now.
Thank you.
There you go. I love you, brother.
I love you too, man. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. First, I'm Q. I'm a grateful, very grateful recovering addict.
Hi, Q.
And thank you. I'm a certified recovery specialist, outreach, majorly in Center City of Allentown. I also have a partner which is Emily. A lot of you guys know her. She couldn't be here tonight.
I was the second choice, by the way. It was supposed to be Emily. I was the settle for option, and I understand why, but sorry.
Yeah. Emily is a very amazing person. One of the youngest people that I've ever worked with, and the smartest person that young that I've ever worked with. I never thought that I would make it to be the age that I am to work with a very intelligent 24-year-old. But however, what we do is we go into the communities and we reach those that feel as though that all hope is lost. We go where people won't go, people where they don't go. Whichever way we could reach them, we'll reach them. May it be through a cup of coffee, maybe just to sit and talk. Maybe just to come by to see if they're there. And it was a struggle with us breaking into it at first. When it started out, who are you? Are you the police? Did parole send you for me? Why me? Why are you talking to me? And we done been through some things. We done been cursed out, talked about, but our main purpose was to be consistent in these people's lives that was consistently forgotten about and judged upon. Today, mainly in Center City, Allentown, we have a lot of people, man, that depend on us. We have a lot of people that we done put in treatment. We have a lot of people that's still dependent on us, but they're just not ready yet. But we still show up and be consistent in their lives. We play a big part with Allentown Police, EMS, the fire department. We're very well known with them. They're very well known of our foundation, which is the halfway home of the Lehigh Valley. We get a lot of referrals from them. A lot of people think that, that these people are out to just lock them up and just throw them away. That's not the case. It's not the case anymore. We get referrals from judges, doctors, lawyers, Ms. Roth. Our primary purpose, man, is to save a life. There's so many people that's out in Center City, Allentown, that just feel like no one is there for them. We're continuously picking those pieces up, and it's not coming together as fast as we would like it to, but it is coming together. As for myself, I understand them. I was very misinformed about drugs and alcohol during my time when I was growing up. And there's a whole lot of others that has been misinformed about what this disease does. All of our stories are not failures. I have a client on my caseload that I've come across at least about 6 or 7 times since I've been employed by Treatment Trends. I don't believe that he thought that he would ever get clean again. Once I got a hold of him, I put him on my caseload. I'm like, look, we're gonna get this right this time. I was doing a ride along with Allentown Police overnight. I don't understand why I took that overnight, but something told me to take that overnight. I did the overnight shift, and I found this client 3 o'clock in the morning, and he had no clue that was me riding that car. I ride in the front seat today, not in the back. I took this client. As soon as I pulled up on him, I sat up. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Q, man, I done messed up. I'm going back to jail." I said, "No, you're not." I said, "Listen, I want you to be at the office." This was a Friday night going into a Saturday morning. I said, "I need you to be at the office as soon as the doors open. 8:30, I want you there." I made a few phone calls. The team from the halfway home, as well as treatment trainers and the COE, we got together, and the doors were opened up for him on a Saturday morning when we know that we were off work. We all came together, got a hold of this individual, and sent him out to treatment. He has been clean ever since. I think he's coming up on a year pretty soon. He's coming up on a year pretty soon. I seen him in a meeting probably about, well, I see him pretty much in a meeting, but probably about a month and a half ago, he came in a meeting and he gave me the keys to a brand new Beamer. You know, and he's the supervisor at his job now. You know, so those are the things, right, that keeps me getting out of the bed in the morning. Success stories like that. Him, and he's so ever grateful when he see me. You know, he come in, he greet all of the staff, and, you know, he just can't stay away from us. You know, and we're okay with that. One of the stories that do hurt me the most is I ran into a client that, well, she was a prospect. We were trying to get her on our caseload. I seen her on a Tuesday. I asked her to come in. I gave her all of my credentials and everything else. Like, listen, I want to help you. I seen her get on a Thursday. She was, again, begging me for money. No, I'm not going to give you money, but I'm going to give you my business card again. By Saturday morning, someone had sold her some crack mixed with fentanyl. You know, she smoked it, and you know, she's no longer here with us. But those are, you know, those, I'm just trying to give you guys the ups and the downs of this thing. As far as the mental health, we help with the mental health as well. We have wide open resources that are, you know, ready and willing to take on our mental health cases that we come across. I have a mental health case on my load now, where I found a young woman last Thursday outside in the nude. And she's cross-addicted as well. She has been traumatized, physically abused by men, and she's physically abusive, and don't trust no one. However, I couldn't leave my card with her because when we got her to the hospital, of course, she was in a nude. She didn't have no clothes. So she called me 2 days later. So now she's on my caseload. And I look forward to working with her. Actually, I'm quite flattered by it. She refused to speak to or basically work with anybody else. So, yeah, and you know, I'm okay with that because that tells me that I'm not that person that I used to be, you know. I got 1 minute left, about 30 seconds now. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a feel of what we do on the streets and why we stay out there and why we do what we do. One of the greatest things, man, that, you know, about this process right here that I love is we do recover. All right? That's all I have.